want you to pretend for just a minute that this whole digital marketing landscape had not evolved over the last 16 years. Okay? Can everybody imagine this, where everything that we have today just sprang out of the ground whole? Okay? Wi-Fi, social media, screaming fast broadband, Twitter, all this connectivity, all this sort of two-way communication, the social graph being illuminated, all of the above. Now imagine that we just got into this room and we were inventing digital marketing right now based on the facts on the ground. If we were inventing online marketing today, how different would our sense of invention be? How much of the received wisdom of how things have to be would we never have agreed to in the first place? I see dead ideas, and they don't even know they're dead. So 15-year-old spoiler alert on that one. Over the course of the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to talk about a dozen dead ideas that I see walking around. Now, a good friend of mine, Charlie Thomas, who many of you in the room might know, really great thinker in our business, he has this great line that he likes to use, and it's action forms around a point of view. Action forms around a point of view. And I think it's absolutely brilliant. So what I'm going to be doing here over this next 30 minutes is putting some provocative points of view out there. And what I hope most out of this is that not that you agree with me. If you do and it's helpful to you, that's fantastic, right? But I want something to happen, because the worst thing that can happen is nothing. The worst thing that can happen is this creeping incrementalism, this settling for the margins that we've come to over the last several years. So I'm going to put my point of view out there, and my purpose is to spark discussion, to foment some controversy. Most of all, it's to get the leaders of this business, you guys, to take a fresh look at many of the assumptions and practices that we've taken as gospel. Things are far from settled, and it's way too early to limit the possibilities that we allow ourselves to imagine. But that's exactly what these dead ideas are preventing: imagination. You may agree with some, you may violently disagree with others, you may applaud, you may boo, you may tweet, you may scratch your head. Whatever your reaction is, I say bring it, all of it. So the first of the dead ideas that I'll talk about is a big foundational assumptive idea that also happens to be very, very dead. And that's the idea that we are a web of pages. Now, again, historical perspective. 2.5 years before we launched the first web banner ads on Wired Magazine's Hot Wired site, a guy named Tim Berners-Lee invented something called hypertext. And it gave birth to the web itself. This was only in 1991. It was a really different-looking web back then. It was a web of people. Academics and scientists and researchers and bohemians and musicians and artists, all connected to each other. It was a web of people who pretty much knew each other, who were connected, who could see the connections between them and other people on the web. Hypertext, the connective tissue of the web, was simply the mechanism, the plumbing with which they would share with each other the things that they were reading and writing. Then something happened along about 1994, 1995. The suits came along. The corporations showed up. We took our old models, our old thinking about what this was about, publishing, broadcasting, agency work, marketing, and everybody built a big, gaudy website. But as Peter Allen, the boy from Oz, famously sang, everything old is new again. So social media comes along, Web 2.0 tools. They've illuminated the social graph. Sophisticated audience technologies allow us to queue up consumers based on who they are, what they like, what they've done, rather than just what they're looking at. We're not just a web of pages anymore. We've gone back to being both a web of pages and a web of people. There's not one web, there's two. So what the hell happened? We continue to focus on creating advertiser destinations, more pages, at the expense of really exploring the potential of the web of people. We're continually handcuffed we treat social media as just another class of pages that we can fence off and gawk at. Audience targeting is too often used to create more of the same tired old metrics that nobody gets excited about. And we're continually handcuffed to dead idea number 2. Moving people around the web. Think about it. Dead idea. In 2010, we have the ability to identify and speak directly to the consumer. In 2010, we have the creative capabilities, we have the broadband, we have interaction, we have video. We can put all that right into the ad unit. In 2010, we have the sophisticated measurement of exactly how each consumer interacts with those ads where they are. Yet we still value what we valued back in 1995. Getting that goddamn consumer to go someplace else. A jump page, an entry form, a website, you name it. We say that he's in charge, but we insist that he come to our house. Please write this down. There's a reason we call it an impression, not a transfer. Moving people from place to place on the web is a dead idea. Now, logically, does it make more sense to market to the consumer where she is, or to build a communication strategy to move her to where we wish she'd go and then market to her? Folks, that's the business that we've all found ourselves in because of this dead assumption that we have not moved beyond. Even many of you who rail about click-through rate, and I'll put myself at the head of that line, as a bad metric, have not shaken the overarching obsession with this big idea of moving people around the web. This is the disease, and it spawned a couple of really nasty tactical symptoms. Like the idea of optimizing click rates. Dead, dead, dead. I want you to write these four numbers down, please. The first number is 10,000. 10,000. The second number is 78. The third number is 9,975. The fourth number is 9,956. You got that? 10,078, 9,975, 9,956. So I sat in on a few different sessions over the last couple of days, and I was sitting in watching a case study around the use of DSPs, and amazing, that we can now sort of get the right people grouped together and deliver a message and communicate with just the people we want to talk to, and have no waste in sort of reaching outside that audience. Then came the big payoff. Then came the success of the campaign. And the chief metric of success was that we increased the click rate 78%. 78% increase in click rate. Wow, that sounds pretty terrific. But now let's break apart the numbers. Let's start with that 10,000. That's the number of impressions that are in play here. So we put 10,000 impressions out there. These are 10,000 times where we have a consumer who's leaning forward, who's connecting with the content, who's in a receptive mood, who's looking for something. We put that content in front of them. And then, if we are at the industry average click rate of 0.25%, it means that we're in the business of throwing away 9,975 of those impressions, throwing them in the garbage in order to get the 25 at the end of the line. So you increase that by 78%. Great success, because now we're only throwing away 9,956 of them. Make no mistake, burning through inventory with the ultimate goal of maximizing a click-through rate is our industry's version of strip mining. Now, the problem with strip mining, of course, is that it's not very sustainable. It treats all this inventory, all those billions of pages and consumer interactions, as just so much slag, waste material to be discarded. It also has an obviously detrimental impact on the landscape, both economically and visually. It causes us to carpet bomb consumers with a mind-numbing frequency of click-me ads. It wastes the time and talent of the publishers, sales, and service organizations, and pulls agencies, yes, agencies, away from their real missions of strategy and creativity. We can do more, we can demand more, we have to have more. And it prevents us from really exploring the true value of the impression itself. There's so much great stuff in our industry. Creativity, demand-side platforms, all this amazing thinking, all this amazing technology, the ability to bring social media to the fore, all of this, all these incredibly smart people doing all these incredibly smart things. In service of what? The click? It's like watching Secretariat pull a milk wagon. There's no right way to do the wrong thing, unless and until we walk away from the dead idea of optimizing to the click, unless we set the expectation for clicks at 0, I believe that our creative and economic potential is going to go unfulfilled. Click rates and moving people are not just dead ideas on a site-to-site level, they also have an internal focus. And that, of course, is the microsite, which is, of course, a dead idea. Now, we all know the microsite. It's the digital cousin to the advertorial or the special section. You know, the AT&T Olympic section that gets saddle-stitched into Sports Illustrated magazine, once every 4 years. But there's one huge difference. Once Sports Illustrated binds that AT&T insert into the magazine, its job is done, and everybody remains blissfully unaware of whoever read that thing. Now, online, we have a little bit of a different issue, don't we? Right? It's like the opposite of the field of dreams. If you build it, they won't necessarily come. Now, for 15 years, I've watched my clients build these little Potemkin marketing villages for advertisers. Oh, sure, we can create allergy content on our sports site. We'll get right on that. Then we suffer a massive self-inflicted click-through wound. The publisher's unhappy because they have to burn ever-increasing levels of inventory and editorial credibility to get consumers to go someplace that they don't freaking want to go. The agency is unhappy because they always end up with an unsatisfying resource return ratio. The answer is really pretty simple. It's been out there for a long time. Whether it's Point Roll, whether it's iWonder, iBlaster, Unicast, DoubleClick, whoever, right? Site in a box. Take what you would have done in a microsite and put it in, a distributable advertising unit that can go live where the consumer is instead of where you wish they were. In a medium that is consumer-driven, that's truly consumer-driven, it stuns me that it's taken us this long to come to grips with the deadness of the microsite as an idea. I want to go big again. Another big thematic dead idea is the idea that we're somehow the spiritual heirs to the advertising business as it's existed over the last 75 years. We are not. We are its antithesis. Now, I want to get one thing straight, and I'm going to go back and quote Lisa Donahue again. To the marketer, advertising is not Don Draper anymore. Do we have slides up? Am I the only one seeing the slides? Okay, thank you. Don Draper, Don Draper had advertising was very sexy around the time of Mad Men, but it's not anymore. To the advertiser, to the marketer, advertising is now a cost to be managed down. Lisa said, I thought it was a very articulate way to challenge the notion. Lisa said, be a business accelerator rather than just the largest cost item. If you think about it, this distrust of advertising is a driver behind what's going on a large scale within these marketing organizations. They have taken procurement people. Now, the procurement people, by the way, aren't just a marketing function. The procurement people are the people who are in charge of controlling costs across the company. The cost of light bulb, the cost of bottled water, the cost of aluminum siding, office supplies, you name it. Those same people that control those costs are now being sicked onto and applied to the cost of advertising. We are a cost to be managed down if we stay in the advertising bucket. Now, we're all infatuated with Mad Men and the sexy mystique of advertising. Every Sunday night that it's on, I go watch the same ad porn that you guys do, tell myself I'm in a really sexy business. But worshiping at the altar of advertising is a dead idea. For one thing, it's too economically limiting. The web provides a platform for meeting so many of a marketer's needs. Promotion, consumer education, compliance, retail, co-op. The list goes on and on and on. We can draw from so many different budgets. We can solve so many marketing problems. Why would we put our channel into such a tiny box as advertising, much less digital advertising? It's too small. It's time for us to make up our minds that both agencies and publishers, everybody in this room, quit your old businesses. You are now marketing services organizations, MSOs. Then you need to embrace the kind of holistic, solution-driven thinking that allows us to walk that walk. And as you're walking that walk, you'll be walking away from the false advertising legacy and its most notorious dead idea, and that dead idea is the campaign. Now, we say that we're focused on the subtle management of the consumer relationship. We say we're a listening culture. that keeps the marketer in constant two-way communication with the consumer. We say that we have the tools to make this a reality and talk with the customer instead of talking at them. As my good friend Scott McClernand likes to say, it's time to be who we say we are. Campaign thinking has no place in that future. The idea that we'll create a brand message du jour and then overrun the consumer's camp with a coordinated attack of media and messaging is, I think, dangerously anachronistic. In its place, I would offer a different vision of marketing execution and challenge all of you to come up with even better ones. I suggest that we elevate the idea that there's a fundamental relationship, and believe it, between the consumer and the brand, and then act accordingly. As brands have new developments and offerings, they're treated as subtle new chapters in an ongoing, always-on relationship, not another campaign, not another message. And always, we're keeping the audio turned up. Listening to the open audio channel that social media enables. Adjusting, conversing, rewarding, explaining, answering. I think these are the skills that replace the conquest-based thinking that's inherent in the campaign. I think more than a few of you on both sides of the aisle may have been waiting for this one. Now, I want to nuance this one a little bit, because there are RFPs and there are RFPs. Now, what I'm calling the blind RFP here is the one that A, the sales organization doesn't know is coming. It's a cattle call. And B, that asks for late-stage pricing and ideation. This is a dead idea. At best, the RFP is a huge challenge to the profitability of sales organizations. They go into full ideation mode. They generate ideas. They put together mock-ups and packages that 95% of the time never see the light of day. 95% of the time never even get any engagement with the buyer. And at worst, the blind RFP is a cynical reverse auction, one that's fueled by desperation, the desperation of being left behind, and that's designed to drive down prices. Now, I want to bring everybody back together here. We're here to co-engineer marketing ideas together. That is how we're going to create sustainable value. That's how we're going to build true value creation in our industry. But we can't do that until we shut down this silly beauty contest. It satisfies no one, and it only creates tension and distrust in our relationship. Agencies, if it's really just a request for pricing, then say so. If a site or network doesn't have a legitimate shot at making a plan, you do them no favors by engaging them in this illusion of fairness. Shorter lists and more focused work is the answer. Publishers, you're not off the hook. You share the blame for perpetuating the blind RFP. My advice is stop getting all worked up every Thursday when the RFPs come in. Put some sanity and some business rules around how you respond and if you'll respond. You don't have to go into full ideation mode. You don't have to get the crash card out and go into sort of full shock every time an RFP comes in. Let's all together put ideation back where it belongs, in the context of a relationship and centered on a business issue that we can both address together. Anything else is nothing more than bad karaoke. Now, I want you all to listen very carefully to this next dead idea, because it's a very subtle one. The dead idea is the idea that we have the right to target. Now, I put this in because what I sense as I look around the industry, I sense a creeping culture of entitlement when it comes to data. Targeting, consumer data, terms like that, micro-targeting, are thrown around our business discussions, frankly, without a lot of care. The content of our emails and speeches can end up in newspaper stories very quickly. And frankly, I think the average consumer would just be absolutely terrified to sit in on one of our breakout sessions here at iMedia, to hear how we talk about their data and how we talk about targeting them. We think that because we can, we assume that we may. And I think that's a very dangerous assumption. I think it's important for us as we reject this dead internet idea of us having some divine right to target the consumer's inventory, the consumer with different inventory and messages. I think it's important for us to answer the question, what does the consumer really get in return for all this data manipulation and targeting? What do they really get in return? Oh, you'll get better ads. You'll get more relevant ads. Well, that's kind of an unfulfilled promise, isn't it? Because it's not really happening. You're getting the internet for free. Be happy with that. That's kind of a lazy premise, isn't it? We must do better than that, and we can do better than that. One can argue, and maybe I'm the first one to do it, that all this targeting and audience segmentation might actually be creating an internet that's worse for the consumer. That's worse for them. That by downplaying the need for context, we're actually disincenting the creation of quality content and environments. Interesting idea, huh? Now, I'm not calling for us to walk away from audience buying, not at all. I'm just saying we've got to restore some sanity and find some balance. The landscape that we are destroying right now is the one that we'll need to live in and profit from for years to come. So take care of the earth that you live in. Now, it's true that internet privacy legislation that's proposed in the Boucher bill is likely not going to contain the dreaded opt-in cookie provisions that a lot of us were worried about. But for us to just celebrate dodging that particular bullet is just whistling past the graveyard. We ignore exchanging true value with the consumer at our own peril. If they decide that this all goes away, it goes away. And I have 4 words to bring that to bear. Do not call list. Remember that? Put the phone marketing industry out of business in about 48 hours. So let's not underestimate them, and let's start thinking about what we're really giving the consumer back for all this targeting, and let's take some care with the language. Yesterday, Lisa Donahue talked about open source marketing work, where we bring in non-traditional partners and we let them really into the process with us. She also said that we can no longer function as a closed system, where one party controlled all the access to the process. And then I'll weave in a seemingly unrelated point. She said that our work going forward was going to be to understand why and how consumers behave the way that they do. This is why the agency as the velvet rope, the agency as the control mechanism to marketing access, the gatekeeper, is a dead idea. As a practical matter, both the marketer and the media owner are a lot closer to observable consumer behavior than the agency can hope to be. As another practical matter, the pace of technological and channel evolution, the pace at which things are changing and the millions of different ways that it's mutating out in the marketplace, it's impossible to flow that completely through an agency channel that's increasingly underfunded and undermanned. There's got to be a new model. The strategy table is now an open table. The agency is one of many players in motion. And I would challenge those who run agencies to reimagine your place in the landscape. In my opinion, your future is not about controlling things. It's about accelerating and empowering them. It's a different attitude and a different skill set, but it can end up being a hugely profitable enterprise. Now, the one dead idea that's almost certain to cause a flap is going to be this one. The separation of advertising and editorial as a sacred premise is a dead idea. Think about it. As virtually every program on television is aggressively incorporating product placement as a core revenue strategy, and as the very line between marketer and media company blurs, we in the digital space are keeping the vast majority of our marketing work penned up in little advertising ghettos at the top and side of our pages. The reality is that we have one screen, one experience, where marketing and content will coexist and ultimately morph together. Products and messages will continue to find placement opportunities in what we used to think of as the content space, and the artist formerly known as the banner will increasingly be used as a distribution system for both rich combinations of brand experience and product marketing. The ad and the editorial are going to live together in one unit, and it's going to be distributed across the web. What used to live on a microsite or jump page will now be distributed and syndicated through what we used to think of simply as the advertising pipeline. Now, my journalism professor in college is no doubt spinning in his grave to hear me read this point. But to me, this is a dead idea. It's anachronistic, and it's a relic of another time. My next to last dead idea, I was reminded of this when Lisa spoke yesterday about the iPad. She called it the world's first completely convergent device. And she said it may change everything. But earlier, Nancy Galante quoted another great digital thinker, Heidi Klum, who said, one day you're in fashion, one day in fashion you're in, next day you're out. Over the last 16 years, I've seen so many silver bullets and holy grails come and go. Starting with push technology, remember that? Behavioral targeting, now exchanges and demand platforms, and then what? It's never going to end. The silver bullet is a dead idea. There will only be more and more and more bullets, more and more and more tools. Nothing changes the game all by itself, but everything alters the ecosystem and the chemistry of what we do. We destroy our own credibility with both investors and marketers and consumers when we talk about the latest edition of the Holy Grail. You want a sustainable role in marketing? You want a future that really builds the value of what we do? Become an expert in consumer behavior. Become that anthropologist that Lisa talked about yesterday. Focus your points of view on what the consumer will really adopt and why, on which technologies and systems will really inform and accelerate consumer behavior, and how each will subtly interact and alter the landscape. Because that landscape is never going to stop changing, never. It's time to accept the digital age for what it is, a permanently dynamic environment. Things will never stop evolving, often lurching forward in sudden spasms of innovation. Many of us want to slow the whole thing down, to come up with rules, to adopt standards that are going to create a stable, predictable marketplace. But while television may have settled on gross rating points and sweeps month pricing, we in the digital world will never have a set of fixed standards for much of what we do. Accept it, move on. To paraphrase a point Lisa made yesterday, industry standards are an oppositional force to agility. And agile thinking, roles, and business models are what we need most right now. Like it or not, we live in a world of controlled chaos. It's not a place for the meek, but it's a great place for the bold to make a difference and ultimately make their fortunes. So here they are, 12 dead ideas. Big and small, strategic and tactical. Dead ideas that fundamentally block the realization of what we can do to reinvent the practice of marketing. Yet they are the very ideas that we've continued to iterate and build on for the past 16 years. Make no mistake about it, incrementalism is our enemy. It's time for a clean break from the dead ideas of the past. Now, we can all manufacture very good reasons why we can't walk away from dead ideas. And almost all of those reasons are about fear and a perceived lack of control. Media owners, sellers, you blame the agencies. Oh, this is the way that they want it, this is what they demand. Agencies, you guys blame the clients. It's what they're demanding. None of us seems to want to piss off the guy upstairs. We wait for someone else to make the first move. We wait for the entire marketplace to shift. We wait for clients to start asking for different things. And the worst thing continues to happen. Nothing. This conference is about building the future of digital advertising. That's our theme. But I think it's bigger than that. I think that what we're building here is the future of all marketing. And we can't imagine that future until we unload the burden of the dead ideas that are weighing us down. It's a time for intellectual leadership, and that begins with each of you. These ideas, this debate, they're yours now. I welcome your comments. I welcome your leadership. And most of all, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. Thank you.